She stood at the river's edge talking like she owned the city, and the most dangerous man in Seoul couldn't look away. The Han River burned gold behind her, late evening light splitting across the water like something out of a dream, while her husky wrapped its leash around a low bush, and she untangled it one-handed without ever dropping a word, without losing the thread of a conversation that seemed to be managing 3 collapsing continents at once. Her voice was low, controlled, architectural. The kind of voice that didn't need volume because it was built entirely on precision. She wore a long black coat over what looked like the end of a very long day, dark skin catching the river light, natural curls pulled loosely over one shoulder, and she paced a slow, tight circle the way people pace when their mind is moving faster than their body can follow. He stood 15 feet away holding his Doberman's leash and doing something he almost never did. Nothing. Just watching. Welcome back to Sonnet Love Stories, my beautiful and amazing family. I'm so happy to have you here once again. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any of our interesting stories. And please take a quick second to like this video, comment, and share it with someone who loves obsessive emotional stories. It really helps the channel grow and boosts our community. Now get comfortable because today's story is intense. Let's dive right in. His name was Han Sung-joon, and in Seoul's quieter, more dangerous circles, that name carried weight the way certain buildings carry the city's skyline, visibly, inevitably, without ever needing to announce itself. Publicly, he was the chairman of Seoul Development, one of the most influential urban redevelopment firms in South Korea. The man responsible for transforming 3 dying districts into architectural landmarks that now appeared in international design journals. Privately, his influence moved through the city like water moves through stone, patient, invisible, and absolutely total. People in the right rooms knew that Sung-joon's handshake meant more than most contracts, and that crossing him was a category of mistake most people didn't get to make twice. He was not accustomed to being distracted. He was not accustomed to standing still while a woman solved a problem that wasn't his. But something about her, the way she pivoted from crisis to crisis without ever raising her voice, the way she seemed completely unbothered by the weight pressing on her from every direction, made him stay exactly where he was. When she finally ended the call, she exhaled slowly through her nose, tilted her head back just slightly, and closed her eyes for 3 full seconds. Like she was giving herself exactly 3 seconds to feel the exhaustion before burying it again. Then she opened her eyes, reached down, finished untangling the husky's leash, and looked up to find him watching her. She didn't flinch. She just looked back, calm and direct. "Tough day," he said. She laughed, a short, genuine sound, a little surprised. "Something like that. I'm managing a project that should have had twice the staffing and half the timeline. Remind me why I love this job." "From over here," he said, "it looked like you were winning." She studied him for a moment, the way someone studies a room before walking into it. Her eyes were sharp, slightly tired, and entirely unimpressed by whatever his face or posture might have communicated about his importance. That, more than anything, was what made him lean forward slightly. The dogs found each other. His Doberman, Juno, and her husky circled once, assessed each other, and immediately broke into the kind of chaotic full-speed chase that made both owners grip their leashes tighter. They walked without deciding to walk, pulled along by 2 animals who apparently had no interest in standing still, and by the time the dogs finally slowed near the river's edge, he had learned that her name was Rowan Pierce, that she'd flown into Seoul 4 days ago from a project in Jakarta, and that she specialized in rescuing large-scale developments that companies had already destroyed through a combination of overconfidence and incompetence. "That's a very specific specialty," he said. "It's a very common disaster," she replied. He mentioned, almost casually, that he was preparing to break ground on a luxury redevelopment project in southern Seoul, one of the largest of its kind in the country, 12 city blocks. A mixed-use development that would fundamentally alter the district's identity. He mentioned it the way powerful men mention things they want you to ask about, expecting either admiration or inquiry. What he got was neither. She tilted her head and asked him how he'd structured his contractor pipeline. He blinked. What? For a project that scale, in that district specifically, you're going to have soil variance issues in the southern parcels that will push your Phase 1 timeline by 6 to 8 weeks minimum if you haven't pre-negotiated contingency protocols with your structural contractors. Have you? He stared at her. Also, she continued, watching his expression with something that wasn't quite amusement, but was in the neighborhood. If you're doing mixed use, your permitting sequence matters more than your build sequence. Most firms get that backwards and wonder why they're hemorrhaging money by month 3. Who's managing your city liaison relationships? Sung-Joon was not a man who was often rendered quiet. But he was quiet then, not from discomfort, but from the specific and unfamiliar sensation of being genuinely impressed. You just identified 3 problems, he said slowly, that I paid 3 different consultants to overlook. She shrugged one shoulder. Most consultants are hired to confirm what a client already believes. That's not consulting. That's expensive agreement. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and produced a business card, matte black, minimal text, the kind of card that communicated everything through restraint. He held it out to her. "Dinner tomorrow night," he said. "Whatever restaurant you prefer. And if you can talk structure and risk mitigation the way you just did over a real table with real numbers, the project lead position is yours." She looked at the card for a moment. Then she took it. "I'll think about it. I'll have a reservation at Evid at 8, he said. "In case you stop thinking and start deciding." She tucked the card into her coat pocket without looking at it again, called her husky back from wherever it had gone, and walked back toward the river path without looking over her shoulder. He watched her go and felt something shift in the back of his chest, something quiet, foundational, like a door he hadn't known existed swinging open an inch. She came to dinner. She arrived 11 minutes early, which told him something. She wore a deep brown silk dress beneath a cream wool coat, her natural hair down now, full and dark against her shoulders, and she walked into the restaurant the way women walk into rooms when they've spent years walking into rooms full of people who underestimated them. Head level, eyes forward, pace steady. She looked effortlessly elegant and slightly impatient, and she was already holding a pen. By the time the appetizers arrived, she had reorganized his entire Phase 1 timeline on a restaurant napkin, identified 2 contractor conflicts his project director hadn't caught, and outlined a communication structure between his executive team and the city permitting office that would reduce approval delays by an estimated 30%. He did not look at the napkin much. He looked at her. The way she held the pen between 2 fingers when she wasn't writing, spinning it once when she was thinking through a variable. The way her eyes moved when she was calculating, not vague, not unfocused, but rapid and precise, like a camera shutter finding the right light. The way she spoke about chaos, not with frustration, but with a kind of affectionate contempt, the way a surgeon might speak about difficult tissue. She'd seen it all before. She knew exactly what to cut. "Why project management?" he asked, somewhere between the main course and the silence that followed it. She considered the question more seriously than he'd expected. "Because most people look at a complex system and feel overwhelmed. I look at a complex system and feel," she paused, searching for the honest word settled. "Like I finally understand the language everyone else is speaking in pieces." He watched her say that. Watched the slight softening at the corner of her mouth that happened when something was true. By the end of the evening, he offered her complete operational control over the Seoul South District redevelopment project, a contract that would keep her in Seoul for the better part of a year, embedded in his company's infrastructure, present in his world with a frequency and proximity that had nothing to do with accident and everything to do with intention. She accepted the contract on a Tuesday morning, sitting across from his legal team in a glass-walled conference room on the 41st floor while the city glittered 40 stories below. She wore a charcoal blazer and had her project files organized into a system his assistant quietly told him later was unlike anything the office had seen. She shook hands firmly, smiled once, briefly, and got to work. That was the moment he understood this was going to be a problem. Not the project. The project was already better with her in it. He could feel it the way you feel structural integrity when a load-bearing wall goes incorrectly. No, the problem was simpler than that and considerably more difficult to manage. The problem was that he found it almost impossible to be in the same room as Rowan Pierce without watching her. And watching her was beginning to interfere with his ability to do much else. The first 2 weeks were professional. She ran daily stand-ups with his project team with a quiet authority that made people twice her age sit up straighter. She restructured the contractor coordination system over a single weekend, rebuilt the scheduling matrix from scratch, identified 6 procurement vulnerabilities that were going to cost the project 4 times what their correction would, and established a reporting protocol that gave Sung-joon real-time visibility into every layer of the build. His project director, a meticulous man named Director Yoon who had been skeptical of an outside hire, told Sung-joon privately at the end of week 2 that she might be the best operational mind he'd encountered in 23 years in development. Sung-joon said, "I know," and moved the conversation on before his expression said anything Director Yoon had any business seeing. The complication arrived on a Thursday afternoon in the form of Won Park Ji-sun, Seojin's head of external partnerships, polished, confident, the kind of handsome that came from knowing it, who walked into the project strategy session 40 minutes late, sat down directly across from Rowan, and spent the better part of the meeting finding reasons to address his comments to her specifically. After the session, he caught up with her in the hallway and offered to show her the good restaurants near the office, since you're still learning the neighborhood. Sung-joon, who had been walking 3 steps behind them both and had not announced himself, went completely still. He watched Rowan give Park Ji-sun a polite, professionally neutral smile. He watched her say she'd keep it in mind. He watched Ji-sun touch her elbow briefly as he said goodbye. He had Ji-sun reassigned to the Incheon satellite office by Friday morning. He told himself it was a performance issue. He knew it wasn't. 3 weeks into the project, the first real crisis hit. A subcontractor on the Phase 1 earthwork discovered a complication in the southern soil composition, exactly the variance Rowan had flagged at dinner, to the week, and the structural timeline began to collapse in real time. What should have been a catastrophic setback became, instead, a demonstration. Rowan activated a contingency protocol she had written into the contractor agreements on her second day, triggered a pre-negotiated rate schedule with the secondary structural firm, rerouted the phase sequence so that the northern parcels began ahead of schedule while the southern issue was corrected, and managed to keep the overall project calendar within 11 days of the original projection. Sung-joon sat in his office at midnight after the crisis resolved and read through her incident report. It was 6 pages, methodical, and written with the same quiet confidence she carried into every room. At the bottom of the final page, below her summary and recommendations, she had written a single line, "Asterisk, this is why we build contingency before we need it. Next time, let's catch it before the ground opens, asterisk." He read that line 3 times. Then he sat back in his chair, stared at the ceiling, and accepted something he'd been trying to organize into a more manageable shape for weeks. He was in serious trouble. Not professionally. Professionally, hiring her was the best decision he'd made in 3 years. The project was tightening, the team was performing better, the city liaison relationships were already improving under her coordination. No, the trouble was personal, and it was specific, and it lived in the way she tucked one curl behind her ear when she was reading a document she disagreed with. In the particular set of her jaw, when someone on the team tried to waste meeting time with unclear thinking. In the way she always knew, somehow, when he'd walked into a room before she turned to look, as if she'd developed some peripheral awareness of him that matched the one he'd been fighting since the dog park. He told himself it was professional admiration. He was disciplined enough to believe it for almost a month. What broke the discipline was quiet and ordinary and completely impossible to undo. It was a late Friday, the office nearly empty, and she was still at the conference table surrounded by contractor bids when he came back from a call and found her asleep. Not dramatically, not sprawled, just leaned forward slightly, cheek resting on one hand, eyes closed, the other hand still loosely holding a pen over an open document. The city burned orange outside the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her. She looked, for the first time since he'd met her, completely unguarded. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then he walked quietly to the credenza near the window, retrieved the blanket his assistant kept there for late-night sessions, crossed the room without sound, and draped it carefully over her shoulders without waking her. He stood there 1 second longer than was reasonable. Then he walked back to his office, closed the door, sat down at his desk, and stared at nothing. He did not get any more work done that evening. Quick pause. If this story has you hooked, tap like and drop your thoughts below. Now, back to the story. The following Monday, she arrived to find her usual project coffee order already on the conference table beside a small note from building services claiming a team hospitality initiative. She accepted this without question. She did not know that Sung-joon had called the lobby cafe at 6:45 that morning and had her order, which he had memorized during their second week working together, waiting before she arrived. She did not know many things yet. The first 6 weeks built a rhythm between them that neither of them named, because naming it would have required acknowledging what it was. He began staying late on the nights she stayed late. He framed this internally as project oversight. She began saving the most complex structural questions for the end of the day, when the office had emptied and the conversations could be slower, less formal, more honest. She framed this internally as efficiency. They were both lying to themselves and doing it with remarkable professionalism. What neither of them could frame was the silence. The way their conversations, increasingly, would pause, not awkwardly, but with a weight that meant something was being felt but not said, and then continue, both of them carrying the pause with them like something they'd agreed to hold without discussing. She told him things in those late evenings that surprised her. About the loneliness underneath the travel. About the way she'd spent 7 years becoming indispensable to companies she'd never see again, arriving like a specialist, solving the unsolvable, then moving on. "I'm good at beginnings and endings," she said once, quietly, looking out at the city. "I've never been particularly good at the middle." He said nothing for a moment. Then, "You're still in the middle of this one." She looked at him then. He was already looking at her. The moment passed. They let it pass. But it left something behind it. The second crisis came from a direction neither of them had mapped. It arrived in the form of a woman named Choi Hae-rin, sharp, beautiful, and clearly important to Sung-joon in ways that Rowan pieced together across a single uncomfortable morning. She appeared at the office unannounced on a Wednesday, walked past reception without signing in because no one stopped her, and arrived in the glass-walled conference room where Rowan was running a contractor briefing like she owned the air in the room. She was gracious to Rowan in the particular way that communicated she didn't consider Rowan a variable worth calculating. She addressed Sung-joon in low, familiar Korean that she didn't translate. She touched his arm once, briefly, and smiled at Rowan with the kind of smile that is technically a smile. Rowan continued the briefing. She did not let anything reach her face. But something reached her chest, cold and unwelcome and entirely inconvenient. And she spent the drive back to her hotel that evening having a very direct internal conversation with herself about the precise nature of what she was feeling and why she needed to stop feeling it immediately. She was here for the project. She was a professional. Whatever she thought she'd seen in those late evening silences was architecture she'd built herself and projected onto a man who was her client, and almost certainly involved with someone who wore shoes that cost more than a plane ticket. She arrived at the office the next morning 20 minutes earlier than usual, with the most detailed contractor performance report she'd written yet, and the deliberate posture of someone who had decided something. Sung-joon noticed immediately. He couldn't have said exactly what had changed. Her behavior was impeccable, her professionalism total, but there was a degree of warmth missing from the way she addressed him, a half-step of distance that hadn't been there the day before. And it made something in his chest tighten in a way that was disproportionate and immediately alarming. He called Choi Hae-rin that evening. The relationship, which was less a relationship than a mutual arrangement of convenience and family-level expectation, had been drifting for over a year. He ended it that night clearly, finally, without anger, with the distinct awareness that he should have done it months ago and was only doing it now because of a woman who had never asked him to. He did not tell Rowan this. He returned to the office the next morning and simply allowed himself to be present with her again, fully, without the arrangement casting a shadow he'd been pretending didn't exist. She felt the shift. She didn't know what it meant. She told herself it didn't matter. It mattered. The explosion happened on a Tuesday night in the 38th week of the project, in a hotel conference room in Busan during an emergency subcontractor negotiation that had gone sideways 3 hours in when one of the primary contractors threatened to walk over a payment dispute. Rowan had been managing the room for hours, calm and relentless, and she nearly threaded the needle when the contractor's representative, a heavy-set man named Bae who had been condescending to her specifically since the meeting began, looked directly at her and said, in English he knew she understood, "I don't negotiate with assistants." The room went quiet. Sung-joon, who had been sitting at the far end of the table deliberately letting her manage the room, went absolutely still. Rowan set down her pen. "I'm not his assistant," she said calmly. "I'm his project director. The person who decides whether your firm sees the second phase of this contract or not. So I'd suggest you reconsider the tone, and then we can talk about the payment structure." She paused. "Or you can leave. Both options move the project forward, just in different directions for your company." Bae stared at her. Then he looked at Sung-joon. Sung-joon said nothing. He just held Bae's gaze with an expression that was completely neutral and absolutely unmistakable. Bae stayed. The negotiation concluded. She got everything she asked for. Later, walking through the hotel corridor after midnight, exhausted and quietly wired from the adrenaline of the resolution, she heard him say her name behind her. She turned. "You were exceptional in there," he said. And then, because he was tired and because it had been building for months and because the corridor was quiet and empty and he had run out of the specific discipline required to leave it unsaid, "You are, genuinely, the most remarkable person I have worked with in my life." She looked at him for a long moment. Something crossed her face, real, unguarded, startled, before she brought the composure back up like a door closing. "Sung-joon." "I know," he said. "I know what you're going to say." "Do you? You're going to tell me this is a professional relationship, that you are here for the project, that whatever this has been becoming is something we should both ignore because it complicates things." She was quiet. "I'm not asking you to stop working," he said. "I'm not asking you to make anything easier. I'm just..." He stopped. Started again. "I need you to know that what I feel when I'm in a room with you has nothing to do with the project." She looked at him for a long time. Long enough that the silence said several things words hadn't been asked to carry yet. Then she said softly, "I don't do this. I'm not someone who stays. You should know that about me." "You've been here 9 months," he said. "That's longer than you've stayed anywhere in 4 years." I looked. She blinked. "You looked." "I look," he said simply, "because I pay attention to things that matter to me." The silence that followed was different from all the others. It had a different density. She turned, eventually, and continued down the corridor. He did not follow. But she stopped once at the corner and looked back. He was still standing there, watching her go, with the patient expression of a man who had decided something and was fully prepared to wait. She did not sleep that night. The threat arrived without warning, as real threats often do quietly, through a channel no one was watching. One of Sung-joon's political rivals, a developer named Oh Sung-chul who had lost the Southern District bid to Seoul and had spent 9 months waiting for leverage, found it in a form he hadn't expected. Not in the project. In Rowan. A carefully placed story appeared in a financial trade publication, anonymous sourcing, plausible deniability, suggesting that Seojin's project director was involved in a scandal from a previous international development. Alleged financial irregularities in a Jakarta project from 2 years prior. The story was carefully constructed, vague enough to require no proof, specific enough to do damage. Within 48 hours, 2 of the city's permitting contacts began cooling on their communications. One contractor called to ask questions. Rowan found out through her own network before Sung-joon's communications team briefed him. She called him at 7 in the morning. "I know," he said before she finished. "It's fabricated," she said. Her voice was steady, but had a different quality underneath, tight, controlled over something that wasn't. "I know that too. The Jakarta project was audited clean. I have documentation of everything." "I know." A pause. "How did you know before I told you?" Because I had my security team pull the publication's sourcing methodology at 4 this morning when a contact flagged the story. And because I know your work. She was quiet. Rowan. His voice dropped, just slightly. I'm going to handle this. This is my reputation. And this originated from an attack on my company. You came under fire because you work for me. That means this is mine to address. Another beat. Trust me to handle it. He handled it. He handled it with the particular efficiency of a man who had navigated political hostility before and knew exactly which levers existed and exactly how much pressure to apply. By the end of the week, Oh Sung-chul's own procurement practices were the subject of a formal audit, triggered by 3 separate anonymous complaints from 3 separate oversight bodies, each complaint meticulous and thoroughly documented. The trade publication issued a quiet correction. The permitting contacts resumed normal communication. He never told her exactly how he'd done it. He simply sent her a document clearing her name through official channels and said, "Closed." She stood in his office that afternoon, really stood there, not professionally, not with a project update in hand, but as herself, unguarded and direct and something close to moved. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes," he said. "I did." She looked at him for a long time. Then she crossed the office, and he went very still, and she put her hand against his chest, not dramatically, just flatly, feeling the steadiness beneath her palm, and said quietly, "I'm still not someone who stays." "You could learn," he said. "What if I'm bad at it?" "You're not bad at anything you commit to. I've watched you for almost a year. You just have to decide." She looked up at him. The city was behind him, bright and enormous through the windows, indifferent to the two of them in the way cities are indifferent to moments that matter completely. "I'm afraid," she said. Plainly, without apology. The way she gave information that was true. "I know," he said. "I'm afraid of what this becomes if you leave. I've been afraid of that since the dog park." Something shifted in her face, not a smile exactly, but something softer and more real than the composure she wore professionally. Her hand was still on his chest. His was at her waist now, light, asking nothing, simply present. "I leave in 4 months," she said. "When the project finishes." "Then we have 4 months," he said, "to make a different arrangement." What followed was not dramatic. It was quiet and certain, and had the feeling of 2 people arriving somewhere they'd been walking toward for a very long time without admitting they were walking. The city glittered. The project files sat in neat order on the conference table across the hall. Everything outside that office continued exactly as it was. Inside it, something changed entirely. The final 4 months were the most alive Rowan had felt in years. Not because she stopped working, she worked harder than ever, because the project was entering its most complex phase, and she was constitutionally incapable of coasting through complexity, but because she stopped pretending the work was the only thing. She let herself have the dinners, the late evenings, the walks along the Han River where their dogs had first decided their owners belonged in each other's orbits. She let herself have him, his quiet intensity, his fierce protectiveness, the way he looked at her with an expression she'd stopped trying to file under professional categories. He, for his part, became someone his staff quietly noticed had changed. Not in his competence or his authority, those remained what they'd always been, but in a specific kind of ease that hadn't been there before. He smiled more. He was harder to rattle. He spent less time at his desk alone after midnight and more time in the hallway outside the conference room where she was still working, appearing with coffee and a dry observation about whatever meeting had run long. And she would look up with that half-suppressed smile that had undone him for the better part of a year. The project completed on a Thursday morning in March, 9 days ahead of the revised schedule, 41 days ahead of the original one. The city permitting office signed off. The Phase 2 contractors were already staged. Director Yoon shook Rowan's hand and told her it had been the most impressively managed build he'd witnessed in his career. She thanked him with characteristic composure and gathered her materials with the practiced efficiency of someone who had ended many projects before. She was halfway through packing her laptop bag in the now empty conference room when Sung-joon walked in and closed the glass door behind him. She looked up. He was holding something, a contract, printed, 1 page. "What is that?" she asked. "A consultancy agreement," he said. for Phase 2, which begins in 6 weeks. He set it on the table in front of her. If you want it. She looked at the document, then at him. Phase 2 isn't my kind of project. It's already structured. You don't need a rescue specialist. No, he agreed. I need a project director. Specifically yours. You're creating a position. I'm recognizing one that already exists. She was quiet for a moment. He waited because he had learned over the course of a year that she thought in full before she spoke, and that her silences were not absence, but processing. The contract would need to include full operational autonomy, she said finally. Already written in. And I travel. When I need to. Your travel schedule is in the scope of work. I've been managing around it for 10 months. She looked at him. He looked back with the steady expression of a man who had thought this through from every angle and made his decision well before this moment. She picked up the contract. Read it. Turned the page. Read the rest. Then she set it back on the table, picked up her pen, and signed it. When she handed it back to him, he looked at her signature for a moment with an expression that was very carefully controlled. She watched him control it and felt something warm and permanent settle in her chest. You're impossible, she said. You're exceptional, he replied. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. She laughed, the real laugh, short and genuine and slightly surprised, the one he had been quietly collecting for a year. He reached out and brushed one loose curl away from her face, slowly, deliberately. She let him. Outside, Seoul moved through its afternoon the way it always did, enormous, indifferent, relentless. Construction cranes stood at the southern parcels of the Seoul project. The Han River caught the early spring light and scattered it across the water in long, gold lines. Inside the conference room, nothing was complicated anymore. She had called it work. She still would because she loved it, because the work was real and important and hers. But she had also, without entirely planning to, learned the middle. And he was already there, waiting in it, patient and certain and entirely consumed by her, the way he had been since the evening she untangled a leash from a bush beside a river and managed 3 collapsing continents without raising her voice. And something in him opened like a door swinging wide on a room he hadn't known was there. She called it work. He called it the best thing that had ever found him. You made it to the end, and that means you're truly part of the Sonnet Love Stories family. Thank you for your support. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be replying as always, and stay subscribed because the next story is already waiting for you.